God is not done. Having known Deron since he was a boy, and having been his youth pastor for a number of years, it was my privilege to visit him just about every week that he was in the hospital there at the University of Minnesota, where I now live in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, and saw Jan. Jan is a remarkable woman. And she was married, as you know, to a remarkable man because he has a remarkable God. And Deron and I, as we discussed various passages of Scripture, one of them was Romans 8:28 and 29, and we know that God works all things together for the good of those who love him, to those who are the called according to his purpose, whom he did foreknow and predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. And there are many who struggle with, how can somebody like Deron keep hanging on to God? Why don't they shake their fist at God and say, why do you do this to me, and walk away from God, turn away from God when he's so harsh? And Deron had one of the several keys. One of them is, God's not done. He's not done. God wasn't done with Deron. And he's not done with us. There is a future. And where Deron is now, he's living in the reality of the promises that he was clinging to in the hospital. And yet, even there, he will be dazzled increasingly, day by day, forever in eternity. God's not done showing off to Deron, even in heaven. So through it all, good, bad, difficulty, pleasure, God is at work, and Deron trusted him about that. And so he's asked that there be a song sung along that line to that end. I had the privilege of being at his father's deathbed when Gene, in the middle of his weakness, said with marvel in his voice, "Isn't he wonderful?" Here's a man dying. Isn't he wonderful? Because he trusted God wasn't done with him yet. Even through that, even through the valley of the shadow of death, goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That word follow there is not passive, like it'll follow me like a puppy. It means it will pursue me like a posse. Goodness and mercy will track me down and find me. And Deron had that faith, and so ponder the words of this song. I've had many tears and sorrows. I've had questions for tomorrow. There've been times I didn't know right from wrong. But in every situation God gave that blessed consolation that my trials come to show that he is strong. Through it all, I've learned to trust in Jesus. I've learned to trust in God. Through it all, I've learned to depend upon his word. I thank God for the mountains, and I thank him for the valleys. I thank him for the storms he's brought me through. For if I'd never had a problem, I wouldn't know that he could solve them. I'd never know what faith in God could do. Through it all, I've learned to trust in Jesus. I've learned to trust in God. Through it all, I've learned to depend upon his word. I've learned to depend upon